January 24, 2026. This is GB of GB's Adventures. I walked out to the Point Cabrillo Lighthouse today for the grand opening of their new saltwater aquarium. And let me tell you, it was overdue and absolutely worth the wait. There is drive-in access for folks who need it, but everyone else hikes in from the parking lot, which is now even has e-car charging stations. You've got two choices getting out there: a paved half-mile path or a dirt trail that runs about 3/4 of a mile. Take the dirt one if you can. It winds through trees, brush, and open stretches. Then suddenly the whole view opens up in front of you. It's fantastic. One of those classic Mendocino Coast reveals that never gets old. With all that ocean down there, you'd think there must be some whales. And yes, there were a few. If you spot a little red arrow in the video, that's your cue to watch for a spout. There were plenty more out there, but it's always the same story. By the time you figure out where to point the camera, the whale has already moved on. It's just how it goes on the Mendocino Coast. Keeps you humble. The dirt trail splits a few times, and if you swing north, you get those big bluff top views, ocean stretching out forever. But I stayed on the main path towards the lighthouse. Along the way, you pass brush that looks like it's been sculpted by hand, but not a single pruner touched it. All that shaping comes from the Pacific winds, whipping on shore day after day, carving everything into its own coastal posture. Then the trail bends just enough, and there it is, that first glimpse of the Point Cabrillo Lighthouse, sitting on the headland like it's been waiting for you. First glimpse of the lighthouse, you can feel the history sitting out there on the headland. Point Cabrillo has been guiding ships since 1909, built after too many vessels met their end along this rugged Mendocino coast. The whole station is one of the most complete light stations left in the United States. Most of the original buildings are still standing, except for the old barn that was lost in a fire department training burn back in 1986. Inside that little white tower with the black lantern is the real treasure, a third-order Fresnel lens built by Chance Brothers in England. It's a beast, 6,800 pounds, 90 lead glass prisms, and it was shipped all the way around the Cape Horn to get here. When it first went into service, the light ran on kerosene, and the clockwork mechanism, like a giant grandfather clock turning a jewel. Electricity took over in 1935, and today a single 1,000-watt bulb fires that beam out to sea. The lens rotates once every 40 seconds, giving mariners a flash every 10 seconds. The lighthouse's signature. The name Point Cabrillo? That goes back to 1870, when a U.S. Geological Survey named the sandstone headlands after Portuguese explorer João Rodrigues Cabrillo, even though he never actually made it this far north. Sorry if I didn't pronounce the name right. All of that history sits quietly behind the glass while you're walking up the trail, wind-shaped brush at your side, whales blowing offshore, and that lighthouse waiting for you like it always does. So now, I'll pause for a minute to watch for whales. This stretch of coast sits right on the gray whale migration route. Thousands of them moving south in the winter and back north in the spring. You don't always catch a big show, but if you see a red arrow in the video, that's your cue to watch for a spout. There were more out there, but they're quick, and by the time you get the camera lined up, they're already somewhere else. This next one coming up, you can actually see its back as it rolls on the surface. And that brings us to the reason for today's hike, the new aquarium. The old one served this place for years, a small homespun setup that introduced countless visitors to the local marine life. It was charming, but it was overdue for an upgrade. The building it's in now wasn't designed for aquariums at all. Back in the lighthouse days, it was one of the station's original support buildings, part workshop, part storage, part catch-all for whatever the keepers needed to keep the lights running. Over time, it shifted roles like most of the outbuildings out here, but it always stayed tied to the daily life of the station. Now it's been transformed into a proper saltwater aquarium with real space, real tanks, and a setup that finally matches the quality of the coastline it represents. A seriously needed improvement with a great addition to the Point Cabrillo experience. Just past the aquarium, you reach the cluster of buildings that made this a full working light station. The two houses closest to the lighthouse were the keeper's residences, one for the head keeper and one for the assistants. Families lived out here year round, kids running these same paths, everyone sharing the work of keeping the light burning through the storms, fog, and long winter nights. Behind them are smaller outbuildings that kept the whole operation running. The oil house, where they store the kerosene before electrification, the blacksmith and workshop spaces, and the storage sheds that held everything from tools to spare parts for the lens. Nothing fancy, just practical, sturdy coastal buildings built to survive wind, salt, and time. Walking past this little cluster, you can still feel the rhythm of the old station. The daily chores, the constant maintenance, and the quiet isolation of living on the edge of the Pacific. Now for the walk back to the parking lot. It's a long, winding road. Well, winding might be generous. There's really just one curve, but the whole thing is uphill for a solid half mile, and you feel every step of it on the way out. As you pant and puff your way up, you pass the educational signs along the roadside. They're great, little snapshots of local history, wildlife geology, but let's be honest, they also give you an excuse to stop for a second and pretend you're reading instead of catching your breath. By the time you reach the top, you've learned a few things and earned that view back towards the lighthouse. Thanks for walking with me out to the lighthouse today. If you enjoyed the quiet and the view, I'd love to have you back for the next one. And if you haven't subscribed yet, you can do that by clicking on my picture at the end of the video. Thanks for watching.